Pepid for Peace.com.
Now, tapping on the table of contents in the ED suite will take us to the information available in the Pepid ED suite, and you have everything, all the links that you want. For example, here the pediatrics section with life support and some medical information. The medical information is categorized into systems, and within those systems you have even subsections. For example, here the eye. Here's an example of one of the diseases, nasolacrimal duct obstruction. You have everything from background to treatment, references, pathophysiology. Another example is otitis media in children, and again you have everything from background to pathophysiology to history and physical examination, and even ICD-9 coding, whatever related to the otitis media in pediatrics. Here is the physical examination page. You can see that there is a small camera icon there. If it is tapped, we will be taken to the relevant illustration. Here is an illustration of ear examination. However, it's not very appropriate in pediatrics because they should have drawn the examiner's hand resting on the patient's cheek, because children are moving when we test their ears to avoid injury. And again, in the otitis media, there's the treatment section. You have everything from acute to empirical. There is the empirical page, empirical treatment of otitis media in children. Tapping on amoxicillin will take us to the amoxicillin page of the Pepid drug guide, and you have everything from dosing to indications, mechanism of action, side effects, interactions, cost info, kinetics. And here is the pediatric dosing page. And if we tap on the dose itself, we will be taken to the built-in drug dose calculator. You have the option of kilograms or pounds, and you just enter the patient's weight and you'll get the dosages. Now, tapping on the test tube icon here in the ED suite will take us to the laboratory reference within the Pepid, a very comprehensive and long list of all the laboratory tests that we can think of. Here's an example of hemoglobin electrophoresis, normal ranges interpretation. Here is the normal reference ranges in adults, and here is the normal reference ranges in pediatric population. You can see that it's different from infants to neonates to 6 months old and so on. Even the pathophysiology and the physiology behind that lab test, and some technical information like collection of specimens or storage. And it is nicely categorized into categories, like here we have chemistries, coagulation, CSF, etc. Even we have a pediatric section. Now, when you open the Pepid iPhone application right away, and if you tap on the drug interactions down there before opening any of the installed suites, there's another problem. You'll get a message that please select a product before changing tabs. Or really, why did you put the tabs in the home page if they're not working? So another design problem that they should fix. Anyway, here's the medical calculator homepage, an alphabetic list, and also in sections, for example, pediatric equations. All the calculators that we may need in clinical pediatrics, especially in emergency settings. For example, here the pediatric body mass index, and tapping, and also it includes some charts, not all the calculators. For example, here's the BMI of boys. Here's another example, peak flows in children, and tapping on that small calculator icon will take us to the relevant calculator. You can adjust the units, inches, meters, or centimeters. However, there is another problem, that when you start entering the data, the default keyboard is the QWERTY keyboard, not the numeric, while in fact we're going to enter numbers. I mean, come on, this can be easily fixed. However, I entered 45 and I've got the result for that height. Here is the drug interaction section. I've entered rifampicin and metronidazole, and I've got all the related information regarding drug interaction between those two drugs. And also there are some other sections in the drug interactions, for example, general information and some details about drug-to-drug interactions. Another section is the acute care reference. Here is where Pepid really excels. They have a very detailed, nice information about emergency management, PALS, ACTLS. Here's an example of neonatal resuscitation with detailed information and even some algorithms. For example, here's the neonatal flow algorithm in a yes or no fashion. So Pepid is really useful for emergency physicians. Some information about shock types, and even a glossary of syndromes and eponyms, and a nice page about street drug names, and also a very nice crisp illustrations are also included within the Pepid on the iPhone, just like what we have seen on the Palm and Pocket PC. However, there's a problem that I would like to highlight here. I switched off the Wi-Fi on my iPod Touch, and I tried the interaction. It actually doesn't work, and you have a message that you have to have an internet connection in order to get the interaction working. And similarly, for any calculator within the Pepid, it will also doesn't work. And another problem is that when we try to calculate the drug dosage, we have the same error. In fact, the very reason that we may get the Pepid native application is that we don't want internet connection to be needed. We want to avoid internet connection. If it is still needed, then there is no point. We can just visit iPhone.pepid.com without the need for any native application.